Mr. Rogers. Fred, with that quiet voice of yours, it's been in my head for decades. 4 children, and yes, grandchildren, have all watched you. I'm in my late 70s now, and your voice, it's still there. I don't remember when the first time was that you got into my head. Possibly I was just passing through the living room, and the television set was on. Possibly I was cuddled up on the couch with a little one, and there you were. And there was your message. I like you just the way you are. How simple. I like you just the way you are. Simple? Yeah, right. If you were here right now, Fred, if you were here in my neighborhood, Plymouth, not your television neighborhood, my neighborhood, living with, well, they sort of look like adults, I'd show you it's not simple. Fred, you see, we have this thing on the internet called All Things Plymouth. It lives on this site called Facebook. Now, I know that came after you died. All Things Plymouth is supposed to be a neighborhood thing, a place to come together, to help one another out, to share news about our town, to ask questions. Good stuff, don't you think? A place where people could, if they wanted, like each other just the way they are. Sometimes it is like a neighborhood. Other times, though, I don't think you'd like it very much. People call each other stupid, idiot, and they call each other names. Racist, libtard. They lie about the world. Now, these are adults, Fred. At one time, they probably sat in front of a television set and watched your gentle soul welcome everybody into your neighborhood. Many of those you welcomed were very different than you. And Fred, you liked them, every one of them, just the way they were. You tried to teach that to my children and also to teach it to me, a parent. Fred, all of my children, now adults, watched, and they loved you. And I was grateful when I was away that I had nothing to worry about what you would say or what you would do. I was grateful for what you were teaching. I never told my children until they were adults that while they were watching you, I was getting telephone calls, sometimes late at night. This was after I had left teaching and went south to work with the Community Development Foundation. I was called all sorts of names. You can imagine them. Communist, nigger lover, and on and on. I expected this in Mississippi, but I was getting it in Connecticut. But while this was going on, you were being gentle with my children. I hoped, Fred, I really hoped that their generation and the one that followed would be different. And now I live in Plymouth. While some of the names that are called have changed, the venom hasn't. Like them just the way they are? Oh, Fred, you ask so much of me, so much. I'm not sure I can do it. I know, separate the behavior from the person. That's my mother talking in my head. But the truth is, I don't like the way they are. I don't like what they've become as adults. Sorry, Fred, you asked too much of me, and yet you are still in my head, that gentle voice. It's still there, and I guess the fact that you're still there means there's some hope for me left. Okay, I guess I know there is. I do love this neighborhood of Plymouth, Fred. And I do know that there are people here who are good and loving and trying to solve problems and not shouting at one another. But still, sometimes I wish everybody would go back and watch your reruns. We watched you once. Maybe we should all watch again. And Fred, I so very much like you in the way you were. I'll never forget how you ended every show. You've made this day a special day by just being you. There's no person in the whole world like you, and I like you just the way you are. It's called Maggie's Diner. In winter, the steam on the windows cracks the frost, and tiny rivers flow down the glass. As the men come in for morning coffee, hooded sweatshirts, down vests, and familiarity with one another as common as the clothes they wear. The cold is left outside as talk turns to politics and sports, and always the teasing and the nicknames of years spent together. Having morning coffee that gets set in front of you the minute you sit down. There is no need to order here, and any change would bring concern. Owner Maggie gets and gives teasing with the professionalism of nightclub comic, and everyone was really worried about her when she wasn't there one morning, and her sister filled in because Maggie was in the hospital having her gallbladder out. She offered to show her 4 tiny scars when she returned, but there were no takers, and the men expressed their relief with a simple, "Glad you're back." It had only been a week, but the world was out of joint, and her sister didn't tease much. So Maggie doubled up for lost time, and everyone laughed again.